Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
And defending WBO welterweight champion of the world from Omaha, Nebraska.
I think we have a responsibility as coaches is to prepare our guys, not obviously for life, but also for pro football. And when you watch the way teams play in the Big Ten, the way they play defense, the way they play up front, the schemes that you see, it prepares them for the next level. So I think, you're watching, there's a shift. There's a lot of new coaches. There'll be some more diversity in terms of the offenses. Obviously, we're bringing in a 3-3-5 defense that not many teams are running. So you'll see some differences. But that's, to thrive in a conference as prestigious as the Big Ten, you have to be a little different. You have to evolve. And so I'm excited to go through my first year. I might have a different answer next year, but I've studied a lot of the teams. I have a lot of respect for these coaches and teams.
Welcome in. Shane, do you have me?
Yep, you're there.
Okay. Sorry, can't hear myself. Welcome in to Coffee and Cream. Can you hear me all right, Jacob? Not through the headphones. Shane, do we got something going on over there?
No.
I can hear Shane.
Your microphone works.
Yeah.
I can hear Shane.
Can't hear either of us.
I can hear Jacob now.
Can you?
I think so. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I don't hear
Anyway,
anything at that.
as long as we're going through the air, that's what matters. Welcome into Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio. As you've probably figured out by now, I'm not Damon Benning, and that's not Andrew Rogers. I'm Ravi, Lulla. That's Jacob Padilla of Hail Varsity, and we are taking you home on a Friday. Finally, next week you'll have your regular guys back whose names are actually in the title. But we actually will have Damon Benning joining us at 8 a.m.
Come on, man.
Kind of talk about Big Ten Media Days. He got back last night, and we got a little tease for you with Damon Benning.
But it was like,
The DB drops are the best. I love the DB drops.
I hate when he does that. He absolutely does, too. I'm sure he can't stand here himself.
No, he really does. But we've got a jam-packed show for you here today. Damon Benning at 8, Mike Sautter at 9, and your friend Matt Vrzal at 9:43. We're also going to have some audio from the Matt Rhule press conference yesterday, Media Days press conference, whatever you want to call it, yesterday. That will be coming up here in a little bit as well. But if you want to get a hold of us, give us a call at 888-638-4876, or you can hit us up on Twitter. I'm at R.A. Lulla, and Jacob is
at Jacob Padilla _.
At Jacob Padilla _. You and Sautter are the underscore boys over there.
Well, when I first made Twitter, I tried to look up just at Jacob Padilla, and it was somebody named Juan who had never tweeted. Egg Abby. Just
you didn't want to buy it from him?
I don't think he checked his account enough to buy it.
That's probably
last time I looked, it was still there, so it wasn't one of the ones I got taken back, unfortunately.
That's too bad.
But I'm attached to the underscore now. It's been with me the whole time.
I would say you've been ride or dying with the underscore.
Yeah, and I went with the underscore after instead of in between, just to, I don't know why, but it's what I went with.
I think it looks cleaner in the handle, but it also is easier to miss.
True.
So, you got to kind of weigh the options there. My problem is, so my brother has the same initials as me. He's Raj Lulla. I'm Ravi Lulla. And so, like, all the R Lulla stuff is taken because he came along first, whether it was in, like, high school, college, whatever, because we went to the same college. All of the so I've been R.A. Lulla my whole life just because I had to differentiate from my brother's accounts. So that's our Twitter handle origin stories. There you go. But I'm kind of attached to the A now too. So, it's
mine was pretty easy. Just Schillerberg. There's like
like
7 of us.
I mean, there's like 7 Ravis in the whole world, in like the whole country, but there's like a million of them in India. So, I don't think there's a lot of Schillerbergs running around just in general.
No.
You're one of a kind, Shane.
Yes.
Look at you, Shano, one of a kind. We love it.
Yes, sir.
So we'll get to some Matt Rule audio. Obviously, we'll have a lot of thoughts on media days. A lot going on in the world of college football, pro football. Nebraska volleyball media days is coming up as well. You're actually headed out to that, right?
Yep. Flying out Monday night.
So where and when? What's happening there?
Chicago, Big Ten headquarters.
Ooh, okay.
So Tuesday, 2 days. Nebraska goes first day, so we'll just be there for that, and then come on back. So it was a good time last year. Last year was the first time that they've held volleyball media days, and I think it went pretty well. And I think everybody involved was excited about it, and so they're looking forward to kind of making it a tradition and building it out, just like football media days has become all across the country.
Yeah, so football media days has become a huge deal. It wasn't even that long ago that it was not blown out like this. I mean, they literally take up Lucas Oil Stadium like it's the first day of the combine, and just there's people everywhere and everybody in suits, and like, I mean, they've got a radio row like it's the Super Bowl, which I understand. I mean, people eat up the content, so why not, right?
Especially this time of year.
Oh yeah, we're just desperate for anything interesting.
Yeah.
And not that media days is always the most interesting thing in the world, but sometimes you have people asking bizarro questions about preemptive prayers to tragedies and things. That was, I mean, okay, we could just start here.
Yeah.
That was one of the strangest things I've ever seen at a press conference.
It was honestly hard to listen to.
It
like,
was.
as it was like dragging out and then got to the part a day before the tragedy.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
So there were so many things that didn't make sense about that question. And I'm trying to be gracious and like, okay, maybe this person has not asked a lot of like press conference questions, maybe not been to a lot of media days, but then I'm like, okay, then what are they doing here? Like, why? I don't understand. It seemed like she was there to ask that specific question.
Yes.
That's the vibe I got, which is even stranger then, right? So if you're unfamiliar, there was a woman. We don't know her name or affiliation because she didn't identify herself. And so I just judging by the accent, I think she was from Wisconsin. In addition to the question, but so basically, she asked this question to Matt Rule about how last year's team. Well, it started with there was a mass shooting in Waukesha, I think it was last year, and so she starts there, and then she goes to how Nebraska last year, which Matt Rule famously, not the coach last year, was prayed on the field after the game, after the Wisconsin game, a full 24 hours before the shooting happened.
Mind you, they do that every game.
Yes, it's a thing.
Every place.
There's pretty much any football game you watch at any level, there will be a group, not the whole team usually, but it's usually players from both teams will come together for like a little midfield prayer or whatever. And so this is not an uncommon thing. And so she went from the tragedy in Waukesha to a Nebraska team doing something that had nothing to do with Matt Rule, to then asking if his teams will continue to do that. And there were so many things because obviously Nebraska praying with Wisconsin had nothing to do with what happened in Waukesha because it happened before and bit like a day before, and B, Matt Rule was not there.
Yeah.
It was the strangest winding road of a question I think I've ever heard at a press conference.
Yeah, and started off complimenting the program and Rule and kind of like said, now that you're at Nebraska, it means more. I don't know what she meant by that.
Yeah.
Now that you're a Cornhusker, it just means more. I don't.
Not a Nebraska person again, by the
correct,
way.
yes.
Which made that part really strange.
Yeah.
There were just so many parts of the question that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then Matt Rule went and did Matt Rule things and gave a really good, eloquent answer out of a total nonsense question.
Yeah.
And basically, I have no idea which clip it is, Shane, so I'm not going to force you to look for it here. But basically, he took that answer because she was like the core.
I can play it.
Do you have it?
I believe so.
Okay.
Well, I think our program, our entire program, is built on really one purpose. We have a mission that we want to be the best team in college football and the best program in college football and the way that we do everything. But really our purpose and my purpose for taking this job and being in college football is so that young people, when they're 25, 30, 35, 40, that they say, you know what, my life is better because I went to Nebraska, and people might scoff at that, but that's why we do what we do. And so we try to attack each and every day, every single player in terms of who they are as football players, but who they are as students and also who they are as people. And young people right now in our society, there's never been a time where there's been more peril towards our younger generations, right? Coming out of COVID, they're way less resilient. There's way less connections. And so whereas when I grew up, my connections were the Boy Scouts and the high school and the local church and all these things. Like kids nowadays are suffering from stress and anxiety and depression. And a lot of it people believe is because they don't have those connections. A lot of kids are just connected to their phones. And so our program, if you watch it, like we're out in the community all the time. And Gus Felder, our player development guy, does a tremendous job. And we're impacting the community because I want us to have connections to each other, connections to the community. We're a lot of education's online now, but even then we're still doing it in our academic environment because kids, they can't leave college and not know how to be in a meeting. They can't learn not how to have discourse. They can't not know how to disagree with people and learn how to listen to other people that disagree. Wouldn't the world be a better place if we all knew how to disagree with each other respectfully? So, and then the spiritual component, whatever their worldview is. We have players that are Christian. We have players that are Muslim. We have players that don't maybe believe in anything. Whatever their worldview is, we're there to walk them through that. We're there to be there for them because who they are as people is way more important than who they are as players. And that might not be popular. And we all want to talk about transfer portals and NIL and all that stuff. That's cool. This group of kids is going to wake up in 10 years and all that'll be gone. And who they are as people will matter. So that's kind of our purpose. I appreciate the question.
So, first of all, he was incredibly gracious to this person that it was a terrible question. Like, let me just start. It was a terrible question, but a really good answer. And there was a lot in there which is kind of the impressive thing about, and listen, if you don't want to hear me gush about Matt Vrzal, like this might not be the morning for you. Because there was a lot yesterday that I was just like, I think I love you. But
he tends to have that effect.
He really does. It's so weird because I wasn't even like I wanted Luke Fickell.
Yeah.
Like when it all went down, I wanted Luke Fickell.
Hosted with you back then. We were shortly after, talking about all that.
And I was bummed out that Wisconsin got Luke Fickell instead of Nebraska. Like I thought Matt Vrzal was a good hire, but I thought if Luke Fickell was on the table, and I have reason to believe he was for Nebraska. Besides the fact that he just came and coached a team in the same division, which we can
all right, guys, I see that.
We could talk about. We can talk about that later. I am now too, Coach.
That's not fair to pull. Like
I am now too.
Literally just said you love the man.
I do. But it's so bizarre because it's not like I was one of the people. There was a pretty large contingent of people that were like Rule's the guy the whole time, right? I wasn't one of those. I wanted Luke Fickell. I thought Luke Fickell was on the table. I still think Luke Fickell was on the table. But as soon as Matt Vrzal started speaking on any sort of regular basis, I was like, oh, Trev got it right. And listen, I have no idea if they're going to win any games. That's the big cloud hanging over all of this, right? We have no idea if they're going to win games. And the sound bites don't win any games. The good answers don't win any games. But I'm going to feel good about it. Like, I'm going to feel good about him being Nebraska's head coach. And I think that matters to Nebraskans.
You in a good mood or what?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good mood. And I think basically everything we've seen thus far kind of indicates why they went in that direction.
100%.
Over someone like Luke Fickell, who has showed himself to be a very good head coach at his last stop. And would be pretty cool if both these hires work out for the two programs, and then suddenly they're back and they're both competing and playing at a high level. And so just kind of Nebraska is obviously in a difficult spot to get back to where they want to be. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like this is, if there's an approach that's going to work, everything that he's preached to this point seems like, all right, they're doing the right things. And like you said, now we have to see, all right, do the words translate to the field? How How effective are these assistant coaches? How effective is their talent evaluation? Obviously, they brought in a lot of new players that will play impact roles this year. So all the football stuff we still haven't learned yet, but they're saying all the right things and have at every step of the way. And the players seem, I mean, outside of the disaster situations, players seem to buy in publicly to every coaching change, everything. Like they're always going to love their coaches.
But they already sound like him.
Yeah.
That's the weird part is they already start to sound like him.
And heck, you look at the 3 media representatives, 2 of them were guys he inherited, and only one was the guy they recruited. And a guy like Ethan Piper, who's not even a full-time starter last year, coming in here,
may not be a starter this year. We don't know.
Yeah, don't know exactly the role.
I think he'll play, but we don't know if he's a starter.
Luke Reimer has played a long time for the previous staff as a day one player. 2 guys that he sent to media days to represent the program and to sell this new version of the program. And you don't do that unless you feel confident that they're on the same page as you as the head coach.
Absolutely. And so part of the reason that I've bought in so hard is like, yes, we haven't seen him coach any games at Nebraska yet, but we have seen it work other places.
Yeah.
That I think goes a long way for me because this isn't like if this was Ryan Walters, where I knew he was an awesome coordinator, had no track record as a head coach, but he sounded like this, I'd be excited, but I wouldn't be just like chugging the Kool-Aid.
It's exciting.
Which I am. Like, it would be like, oh, this sounds really good. I like where this is going, but we still have to see it. He's done this.
Yeah.
I get the Temple's a whole different ballgame, but Baylor was probably the second hardest situation to inherit in the last 20 years of college football, with Penn State being the first.
Definitely up there, yeah. In terms of the Power 5 conferences,
yes,
taking over a disaster.
Because Baylor's a hard job anyway to start.
Yeah.
Right? And then you have the Art Briles sexual assault scandal. You have the fact that there was almost no one left on that team.
Yeah.
He was almost starting over. Right? And so I think that's part of the reason he comes in here and he's like, oh, we've got it pretty good here.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, that's why it's so hard to like set expectations and project this year one, because we haven't seen this type. Like you said, we've seen him do it before. We haven't seen him do it in this situation.
Sure.
In terms of from the starting point, obviously, you feel confident in his ability to build up a program based on what we've seen, but it was a disaster in year one in Baylor. No expectations going in, and it went poorly, but then turned it around quickly. So what is the starting point going to be for this Nebraska rebuild? And that's all the football stuff still that we're waiting for.
It's a really good question.
Oh. I don't think I asked the question in there. Well, I just kind of was wondering aloud more so than a direct question.
It's a pondering.
Yeah. So that's kind of the interesting thing here. And mentioned not being all in on Rule. I was kind of indifferent. I was like, there were things that gave me pause just about the way that he failed at Carolina.
Yeah.
And some of the stories that came out of there. And that kind of gave me pause. Obviously, the vitriol from the Carolina fan base, which is like, yeah, that seems over the top, but also, I mean, things did go very poorly there.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's acknowledged that, like, hey, it wasn't a good fit for me. As long as you kind of learn from that and get back to doing what worked for him previously, and while also adjusting to the new landscape, because obviously college football is very, very different than the last time he's a head coach.
And he wasn't gone for that long.
Exactly. That's kind of the crazy world that we're living in now. It's you got to be able to adapt. That's as important as any trait in a head coach now. And it seems like he's embraced, like from the opening press conference, all that stuff. Don't hear a lot of grumbling about the way things are now. It just kind of like seems like he's willing to roll with the punches and do what needs to be done.
Well, best thing we can do is just model what it means to be a Lion out there.
Lion, nice.
A Husker.
We're not lying.
You're not a
no
Lion
Penn State
anymore.
stuff. No,
you're not a Lion anymore.
Yeah.
day after day after day.
There we go. That's Nebraska. There
Because iron sharpens iron.
That's everybody.
He says that so much. The Carolina part of it is what gave me the most pause when they were hiring him, because he did fail pretty spectacularly. Like, it went really poorly. What I like about it, and what as I've come around on, is he kind of just owns it. He's like, it didn't go well there. In order to take that job, I believe this is what he said. He said, in order to take that job, he compromised some of the things that he believes in terms of how to run and build a football program, which you have to at the NFL level.
And since it's you and I, seems like there's a comparison here to Greg McDermott at Iowa State.
Absolutely.
Kind of the same deal. And look what's happened with Greg in his next stop.
In his next act, right? Yeah. There's guys that are really good fits at certain places, right? Matt Rhule, and I could understand hearing him, how maybe that doesn't play in an NFL locker room. How the connectedness, how the relationship building and all that stuff. Because if you look at the best head coaches in the NFL, I don't look at them and say, yeah, I bet Bill Belichick has like really good relationships with his players. That's not to say he has bad relationships, but I don't look at that guy and I know he's more personable privately than he is publicly. But I don't look at that guy and be like, he's sitting down with guys and like really getting into the nitty gritty. No, we
are a caring, not coddling environment.
He's a football savant.
Definitely not coddling with Bill Belichick.
Yes, right. And so it's a totally different thing that works at the NFL level. And some guys can do both. And I mean, let's be honest, Nick Saban was bad at the NFL level. Like, he's doing okay now, I think. Right. So it's I think maybe I put too much. I don't want to assume whatever anybody else is thinking. I think maybe I put too much on it to start the Carolina thing. But the fact that he just kind of owned up to it and be like, yeah, it wasn't a good fit for me. I didn't do what I needed to. I appreciate that. You don't try and explain away the failures. You just say, like, yeah, no, I didn't do very well. We're going to do better now. I've learned, right? Coming up, we're going to get into more Matt Rhule audio stuff. Nebraska and Creighton basketball, both taking some trips here in the near future, so we'll touch on that as well. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm Ravi Lulla. You're listening to Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio and AM 590 in Omaha.
To our right, Coach, in the front.
All right. Coach Lane here to Stay Alive in Power 5. How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right.
That maybe weren't on our radar, but
Go ahead.
Thank you, Coach. I'm going to lean on you. When you're a Cornhusker, it means a little bit more.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Coach. I'm going to lean on you. When you're a Cornhusker.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Coach. I'm going to lean on you. When you're a
program is built on really one purpose. We have a mission that we want to be the best team in college football.
known for throughout the Big Ten.
Well, I think our
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Coach. I'm going to
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Coach. I'm going to lean on you. When you're a Cornhusker, it means a little bit more. A couple of years ago, Nebraska lost at Wisconsin. Guys were praying on the 50-yard line after the game. Less than 24 hours, the Waukesha parade tragedy occurred where many lives were lost. We give a lot of credit at Wisconsin just seeing your guys there on the field praying less than 24 hours before that happened. As a coach, how are you going to continue to build that culture and that climate that I think your team is really known for throughout the Big Ten?
Welcome back to Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio, AM 590 here in Omaha. I'm Ravi Lulla. That is Jacob Padilla. And that was the question that we referenced in the first segment. I still don't know what connection she was trying to make. I got nothing.
Yeah. Is that what Nebraska is known for in the Big Ten?
I mean, it might be. It's about the only thing. I mean, they haven't done a whole lot in terms of other memorable performances. We're going to get to some of our Matt Rule audio here in just a minute. But want to remind you that you can get a hold of us at 888-638-4876. You can watch us on the YouTube stream as well and chime in with your comments. Typically, the YouTube stream starts popping off. We've already got David Erickson in there. He asked me if it's the real Roy Kent because I'm rocking my Ted Lasso jersey here, And he's typing the Roy Kent chant in the chat there. So appreciate you tuning in there, Dave. Appreciate a fellow Ted Lasso fan in there as well. Did you ever watch Ted Lasso?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
Well, you've missed like a cultural phenomenon. It's okay.
I haven't missed it. I've seen the discourse. I just haven't watched any of the episodes.
You don't like watch a ton of TV though.
I
do
don't.
You?
And I don't like have all the various streaming sites. I still have cable just because it's easier. It's what I grew up with, and it's just easier to deal with. And the way I watch TV, it's most of the time it's live sports or like background, like reruns and stuff. Or I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
So there are a few TV shows like that I'll watch, but I'd like to watch more TV. It's just I'm very bad at time management, and so it's hard for me to just sit down and like watch something new where I have to lock in on it.
Pay attention.
And honestly, like the commercials are useful for me because like, all right, now I got to actually get some work done.
Yeah.
So you've never
read something
3 minutes to get.
So
you've never binged on a TV series?
Not really. I don't. I had stretches I've gone through where I've watched some things, but yeah, typically I don't just sit down and watch, like get locked in on like 5 episodes of one TV show or anything like that.
Do you have? This is a genuine question. I'm not making fun. Do you have any hobbies outside of sports?
Not really.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
And that's not a judgment. I was because we've known each other for a while now. And I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I don't know of anything you like to do that is outside of sports.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest, really.
Which is cool. I mean,
again, I do like TV, and it's just the
time issue.
The problem with, and again, it's my attention span too. Like again, like if I'm gonna watch like something like on the streaming site or whatever, no commercials, anything, it's just go sit down and watch 3 episodes or whatever. I feel like you got to lock into that, and it's hard for me just to, all right, I'm gonna because like if I watch an episode and I get distracted by something else, and then like, well, I missed it. Like like if I'm gonna watch, I'm gonna lock in, and it's just hard for me to do that because like, well, I've always got something else that I could be doing or doing at the same time. Yeah, exactly. Like my writing process typically, like for stories the next day, like I'll waste time all day and then like write at night. Yeah, like it's like, all right, I got to finish it before I go to bed.
That's why you're up until like 4 o'clock in the morning a lot of nights. Yeah,
not quite that bad, but yeah. That and also have problems falling asleep, so I push off trying to go to bed.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm very good at procrastinating. Not very good at anything else. Time management related. So it's all part of my weird process of living.
Well, hey, if it works, I mean, so far so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
not the best, but
well, it's all right. And it's kind of funny because, like I said, we've known each other for quite a while, and yeah, I was just like, man, I really don't think he has any hobbies outside of anything basketball related. Like I've said this before. You like basketball more than anyone I know likes anything else. Like more than I like dogs. More than like I've never met someone because listen, I love basketball, but there's stuff where I'm just like I cannot watch this. And you're there keeping a box score.
I think part of it is because I haven't found like other things that interest me as much, so I go all in on this, and it
makes sense,
and it's something like. Again, at this point, like the high school stuff and all that, it's something I started and did like in school with Sautter, who we've got coming up later. And
great tease, by the way. Well done.
There you go. I'm getting better at this whole radio thing. And it's just like once I started working for Hail Varsity, it just kind of like it didn't feel right to just drop it entirely because I've been doing it for 3-4 years.
The prep stuff,
yeah. So it's like, well, I still got time to do this on the side. I'm still got the coaching thing tying me back into it. I feel like there's a void there. There's opportunity to help these kids. I mean, I got a lot of coaches that have followed me over the years that I talked to, and obviously a lot of parents follow me. So it's just kind of like there's the opportunity there to kind of provide the service, and I do enjoy it. So it's something that I just stuck with it, and now it's kind of part of just kind of what I do.
Well, I'm jealous that you don't have any hobbies, because I have too many. My brother says I have golf, I have comic books, I have movies, I have music, I have fishing. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. So to have no hobbies, I'm almost
How
jealous.
often do you golf, Shane?
That's kind of teetered down a little bit.
Okay.
So
I was just curious because I think I said this earlier in the week. I'm trying to get back into golf because I used to golf a ton.
Right. That's probably where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I used to golf a ton in my 20s. Because in your 20s you just don't have as much to do. And so it's gotten back to the point where it's like, okay, I think I would have some time to do this. Plus, it's one of those things where since I'm not powerlifting or stuff anymore, it's like, well, I should start doing the old man things and start golfing. I already play pickleball, so I got one of them covered.
There you go.
But no, I don't have a ton of hobbies, but I do have more than you do. But I'm not I don't like going fishing. I don't stuff like that.
Golf, no interest in golf whatsoever.
I really did like golfing a lot. But yeah, I like watching TV. Yeah. TV and movies are really big for me.
Occasionally I'll go frisbee golf with my brother.
Oh, nice.
I did that in high school, did some of that part of the frisbee golf club or whatever. But again, I'm just so bad at time management. So it's not something doing it all summer long. It's we went one time this summer. Last year we went a few times, just and that's kind of same thing with TV. There are definitely some things that I could get into. I'm just not good enough at fitting them into
budgeting your time.
Yeah, so that's I probably could there are probably other interests that I could develop.
Sure.
I'm just bad at committing myself to doing so.
Well, I think part of it, at least for me, is if you don't like something more than the stuff you're currently doing, then you're not going to budget the time for it, right? I started getting obsessed with pickleball a year ago, and so I was carving time out to make sure I had time to play pickleball. Whereas it seems like nothing has risen to the level where you're I'm going to give up watching random middle school AAU basketball games because I would rather do this. I think that's part of the equation there as well.
Yeah, and again, if I were to start a TV show, a lot of times I get turned off there's just too many episodes, I'm too far behind or whatever. So I want to, if I'm going to dive in, I want to actually watch it consistently. And it's hard to do like more than one at a time if I'm doing that on top of all this. And things like listen to radio during the day, like Coffee and Cream in the mornings,
like a good company man.
It's just easier to read, have that on in the background as I'm reading or as I'm writing.
For sure.
That's a great hobby right there.
Yeah. Listening to this fine radio program is a terrific hobby. So we appreciate that for sure. We didn't get into any Matt Vrzal clips there, but we will next. I promise we will get into some Matt Vrzal clips because, I can't contain my man crush for 2 entire segments. So
there's that time management thing popping up.
I know the time management creeps up for both of us. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back with more Coffee and Cream and some Matt Vrzal clips coming up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Yeah, I had never heard of it before, and I was a little scared when I first heard it. But you know, I married a woman who went to culinary school, and as you can tell, I like great food. I love great things, and so I actually went to a recruit's house, and Mom made it for me, and it's a little bit life changing. It's pretty good. So yes, I am.
Welcome back to Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio, AM 590 here in Omaha. I'm Ravi, Lulla. That's Jacob Padilla here with me today on a Friday. If you're wondering what the heck he was talking about, some intrepid reporter asked him about the cinnamon rolls and chili thing, and that was his answer.
You know what goes great with chili and cinnamon rolls?
What's that?
Coffee and cream.
Coffee and cream. I actually don't know if it would go.
I don't drink coffee, but I'm a company man. So
you are a company man, and I appreciate that. I only drink iced coffee. Yeah. I really hate hot beverages.
I like hot chocolate. That's about the only like hot beverage that I drink. And I don't drink it that often.
Deal with hot chocolate. I don't ever seek it out. I think the only time I've actively sought out hot chocolate was I was at a very cold football game once, and I was like, I need something here. So when I was a kid, I think this is an Indian thing. When I was a kid, my dad used to give us fennel tea to like make our stomachs feel better when we were sick.
Sounds delicious.
It's awful because fennel tastes like black licorice. Imagine that in a tea.
Oh no.
And then imagine you're already feeling sick. Which fennel is like, there is shown to like help with nausea, but in this particular instance, mine was not like a regular nausea. It was a full-on stomach flu, so nothing was taming it.
Wasn't gonna.
So I just have a very vivid memory of getting violently ill pretty close after drinking some fennel tea. So it's kind of soured me on hot beverages a bit there. So there's a little bit of more information than you need about me, which is kind of what I do here.
So with those two questions that we heard,
yes,
are we surprised that we didn't hear somebody ask about, have you ever had Nebraska beef, or you ever been on a farm? I mean, that seems like those two questions.
I'm surprised nobody asked about Runzas.
Yeah, that would have been the big one.
That's the one that I think what they would have gone to. Because, like, listen, if you've been in Nebraska for 8 months or whatever he's been now and haven't had any beef, like, I don't know what you're doing.
Like, and also, like, it's more of a generic thing.
Yeah.
Nebraska's been around long enough that people have picked up on the actual like specific things.
Yeah, like Omaha Steaks is a thing.
Yeah.
So
Runza at this point, I think, has been pushed out there enough that people are aware of it.
Yeah.
The corn and the beef, that I think that maybe if maybe someone more from the East Coast, you could have heard questions like that, but it was, I think, another like Midwest report or whatever. So
it would have had to been like a Yukon writer who's never seen Omaha before that puts out tweets of Omaha looking like a cornfield that would ask a question like that. I'm not still mad about it. Shane, let's play clip number 4.
Yeah, I've really thought about this, right? I mean, we want to compete in every game we play, right? I mean, we play to win the game, as Coach Morris says. So, I mean, we're going to go out and try to win every game. I think there's something bigger, though, for us at Nebraska. Like, there was a time when Nebraska football was feared, and we certainly want to get back to that. We want to be a team that you say, you know what, that team's feared, but we're not at that point yet. We're at a point right now where I believe that we have to take back the respect of what it means to play Nebraska and to be Nebraska. I mean, I want people to respect when they see that white helmet with that red N on it. And so I want our fans to respect us when they pay their money to come watch us play. I want our opponents to respect us. I want all of college football to respect the way that Nebraska plays the game. And most importantly, I want our players to respect what it means to be a Cornhusker and what it means to be at Nebraska. So this season for me is all about us not just earning, but taking back respect and bringing back respect to Nebraska football. And so once you earn respect, then you can talk about being feared, and that's the process we're going to go through.
And can ask Damon about this, kind of what sticks out, but I think if there's probably a like headline punchy quote from his time up there, that was probably the one that jumps out most. Like, all right, that's slapping. That's going to be the headline grabber. Just kind of that the respect to fear and the process to get there is kind of the tagline for the season in this rebuild and what Rule is projecting.
Well, there's a couple things there, and you touched on them that are really, really interesting to me. And part of it is the process part of it, right? Because a lot of coaches talk about, oh, we got to trust the process, or we got to go day by day or whatever. But he very often, I mean, I know he said the word process at the end. He very often doesn't even say the word process. He just describes
a process,
which is why I believe it's going to work. Because a lot of guys are just paying lip service to it. But he understands not only that it's a process, but he lays out the steps for you. Yeah. He's like, I think in a later quote, and I have no idea which one it is, Shane, so I'm not going to ask you to try and find it. But in a later quote, he's like, you have to earn the right to even talk about playing Minnesota. You have to earn the right to talk about your week 1 opponent. And he's like, and we're not there yet because they haven't even started fall camp. And so just this idea of everything you get to do is a privilege. You have to earn those privileges in order to talk about playing Minnesota or to talk about playing Colorado or to talk about being respected or feared again. And the other part of that equation that I think is really interesting is he neither shies away from the past of Nebraska, which is really lofty to try and live up to, right? Nor the current struggles of what they're going through. He hasn't really ever shied away from, hey, they're not in a good place right now. Like, that's why he's here. If the program was going well, he wouldn't be here, right? Because if the program was going well under Scott Frost never, ever gets fired. That's the nature of what happens when you bring back a national champion winning quarterback. If they win, they stay there forever, or as long as they want to, at least, right? He wouldn't be here if things were going well. So it's really disingenuous to try and act like things have been great. But I feel like a lot of other coaches have also, maybe not in words, but don't really want to acknowledge where Nebraska's come from because they don't want the expectations that Nebraska can return. Well, I think we already heard in these clips. He says they want to be the best team in college football. He says they want to win championships. He says they want to be feared again. And not shying away from those things is, I mean, he's putting himself out there. He's putting himself in kind of a vulnerable position, but I like that he's not hedging. Like, he's not hedging his bets. He's not trying to control expectations. He's just saying, hey, this is where Nebraska was. That's where we want to go again. But before we get there, we have to go here, 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 and here.
And that's the part that seems to have been missing. Like, we've heard plenty of bravado before in recent regimes. But like, seems to have been steps along the way that were missed. And we got to see if they can execute those, leading this team through those steps.
Sure.
But they're at least talking about, all right,
they're at least
these are the
aware.
steps that we need to take to get to where we want to go. Now it's just about executing, like we've been talking about.
Yeah, and I don't know in previous regimes, and this isn't just about Scott Frost. This is about basically everyone that's come after. I mean, Osborne, I guess. Solich was probably the closest about understanding, but it seems like a lot of coaches have come in here and just expected, like, okay, I'm a good football coach. I'm good at the X's and O's of whatever I do, right? And I genuinely believe all of the guys that have come here were really good at the part of the game that they knew how to coach. Bill Callahan, obviously a genius offensive mind and incredible offensive line coach, right? Bo Pelini, at the time, a defensive savant. Like, it seems like the game's changed a little bit on him and he lost it, but at the time, really good defensive mind.
Right there.
Mike Riley, I think, is a really good offensive mind. He was considered for a very long time as one of the best offensive minds in the game.
And he's still getting coaching jobs.
And he still gets coaching jobs, right? At pushing 70 at this point, I think. And obviously, Scott Frost had a really good offensive acumen. It's not that part of it. They come in here and they think, hey, I'm really good at what I do. And they are. What they don't realize is there's so many other parts of the equation to be a successful football program, especially at Nebraska's a really big job, right? It's the thing that people care about the most. There's a lot of moving parts. You're kind of part football coach, part governor of the state almost. Like, you're a very public figure. And there's a lot of that other stuff between the media. We've seen a lot of the coaches not be real friendly with the media. I think basically all of them but Riley, if we're being honest, have not been, since Solich, have not been friendly with the media. And so you've got all these other competing interests. And the thing that I think a lot of these guys have failed to understand is you have to be good at all of it. If you're going to be successful at Nebraska, you have to be good at all of it. And maybe Rhule's not good at the football part because we haven't seen it yet. It seems, like I said earlier, unlikely considering he's been successful before, but he's definitely good at the rest of it, and that's new.
And that's where the kind of responsibility that falls on his assistant coaches. And like that, it seems like Rhule, as the head guy, as the guy overseeing everything, seems like he knows what he's doing. Everything's in place. Now it's going to come down to, did he make the right hires? And in the past, his coaching, he's done a good job of identifying coaches. Aren't a lot of guys coaches. that are proven at this point in their careers to a high degree, but they fall in line with other hires he's made.
Yes.
And so now, can those guys get the most out of these players? How's their evaluation ability, their recruiting ability? Do they have the right players? Can they get the right players? That's what it's going to come down to. I don't think Rhule is going to get in the way like we've seen other head coaches do previously.
Absolutely. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm Ravi Lulla. Damon Benning coming up next here on Coffee and Cream on AM 590 in Omaha.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
First of all, it's great to be here. So thank you guys all for being here and covering Nebraska football. I want to make sure I begin by thanking Tony Petitti and the entire Big Ten Conference. In my short amount of time, it's been first class, and all the other coaches have been amazing. I want to thank Trev Alberts, who's here with us. I appreciate him giving me this job and giving me this great opportunity. And I want to make sure I thank everyone back home, everyone in Nebraska. It's been an amazing 6 months, and excited to get to the season.
Welcome back to Coffee and Cream in the Morning. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Jacob Padilla here with me. You can get a hold of us at 888-638-4876. We're live from the H&H Chevrolet studio here at the Hail Varsity Club. And we're joined now by a gentleman who's usually here, our good friend, one of my favorite people, Damon Benning. DB, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you guys doing?
We're having a good time. We haven't gotten to we haven't had to just kill everybody with Creighton talk yet. So I think it's been a good morning so far.
Well, between that and the NBA, it should be pretty spirited.
We haven't talked any basketball yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, good morning, JP. I'll see you shortly. How are you?
Good. Yeah. Good. Get a little preview of our conversation later. Things lined up nicely, but how'd the trip go?
Trip was good. I mean, thank the Lord. No flight delays.
Hey,
everything was on time. I flew back with Greg Sharp and Jay Foreman last night, and I flew out solo. So it wasn't too bad at all. Went through Minneapolis to Indianapolis and got in, got out. Not Indianapolis is a surprisingly not easy place to get to.
No, it's not.
I forgot that from the last time I was at Big Ten Media Days, but there were some folks that had to take some creative ways to get there. So I'm glad I wasn't one of them.
DB, I know that you had some sit down time at dinner with Rule, but you also had some sit down time with him not too long ago. And your big sit down with Rule is dropping today, right?
Yeah. That it'll be on Hurrdat Sports, the YouTube platform, and I was pretty proud of that one. It was real spontaneous, you know how I work. It wasn't anything that was super planned, like this is what I want to say, this is what I'm gonna, I just we just started talking kind of like what we do, and the conversation kind of took a life of its own, and so it'll be pretty cool. You get a chance to look at him behind the scenes, kind of what makes him tick, and you hear it sometimes when it comes out, but this one we stripped away all the other stuff and kind of just sat out and talk shop.
So just let's give the people a little tease here. Is there like a moment or kind of a line of conversation? Because it's a full hour. I mean, you talked to him for 90 minutes to cut it down to, I think, a full hour still. Was there like a little tidbit you want to share to kind of whet the people's appetite?
Well, I think I got a really good sense of kind of why he's the way he is with players and as a coach when he starts talking about the relationship with his mom and dad. Growing up, not to spoil it, but he wasn't always an easy kid that did the right things in high school. And so there were some things that were triggered, and they had to find some alternative routes to get there, what they wanted to accomplish accomplished, and just that unique relationship, man. I'm a big family. I just, my dad meant so much to me. I love my mom to death. Like that parental aspect kind of really got things going. And then, the backbone of his family, it's got 3 kids, and, they all require some unique service. They had required some unique services in schooling, and it's in my wheelhouse, with what I did in education, and been a special education teacher, or, emphasis. And it just, there's a lot of connections there, and we kind of split it up into, the culture, the family, and we got to football out on the field. So it was kind of just cool to sit out there on the 50-yard line, just out there on the big red end, and literally just shot the breeze, and then to watch it kind of continue to come to fruition, what he wanted in his quarterback play, and what he wants that offense to look like, and, how we undersell a good defense returning to Lincoln. He said, people forget when Nebraska was really, really good, they did it with defense. And for as great as those teams were in the 80s, if they just got a few more stops, it could have been different. So he's really dialed in on wanting to play good defense and run the football. So that became pretty evident during that conversation too. So not enough people talk about the black shirt, so I kind of like that.
Transitioning to what he had to say yesterday up there, I already mentioned in our previous segment kind of the quote from his time in front of at the podium, that what I thought was kind of the attention grabbing headline, that the punchy one that everybody is going to grab onto. But is there anything that you heard from, whether it was from Rule or his players, that you really latch on to and you thought, okay, yeah, that I like to hear. That's a great thing to hear.
Yeah. So for me, it was weird, right? It's kind of what he does. It was birthed out of the odd question from the lady that was talking about praying before the tragedy in Wisconsin. And, when we heard the question, I didn't quite know where she was going to land the plane, but it gave me enough time to think. So I immediately looked to Coach Rule, and his answer to that question and how he wove it into what he wants from the community, what he wants his football team to embody, kind of what was birthed out of what seemingly was a question that came out of nowhere, really typifies who he is. Remember yesterday I said he's an unbelievably quick processor.
Yeah.
He just doesn't blink. And you go and look at his mannerisms. There was no furrowing of the brow. There was no, wait, what? He just seamlessly answered the question, then thanked her for asking the question because he got to do his thing. And that was provide some depth to what he wanted in his program and his players to embody. I mean, the answer was spectacular. Where, and I'm just thinking, how in the world, right? It's a total gift. Just what he didn't even give it a second thought. Just wax poetic, gave a great answer. Hey, thank you for asking the question. Because I think even in that moment, and maybe I'm giving him too much credit, I think even in that moment, he wanted her to know that she was still in a safe space, even though he probably knew real time what other people were thinking. Like, I mean, that was it in a nutshell, right? That was exactly who he is. Exactly who he is.
Yeah, it's really interesting you brought up the way the letting her know that she was in an okay place, because I kind of thought it was odd that he thanked her for the question. But I think you're right. I think he could maybe sense the tone shift in the room, because it was a super bizarre question. Let's be real here. But yeah, I think I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. I have been thinking a lot about. Oh, go ahead.
I'm always watching him. It's like, so I pay attention to, because his words usually matter, even when he's kind of being snarky, or because he's pretty witty and he's super sarcastic, but even that has meaning. You know what I mean? And so I kind of, you could feel the room was. It was definitely awkward. There was some murmuring and she was nervous. Like you could tell in her delivery. Yeah. And so I think, I just think he deep down wanted to make sure that she was okay. And he did with it what he could, and he moved on. Like that's just who he is. It's just who he is. He's going to take, he roots for the underdog, right? He just, I can't say it any better than that. He just wants to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to flourish regardless of what you bring to the table. And I think a lot of that has to stem from his relationship with his kids. I absolutely do.
So I usually don't feel like I can get a lot out of media days, but listening to Rule, my man crush went to a whole new level yesterday with some of the answers he was giving. And so I was trying to put my finger on, what is it about Matt Rule that appeals to me so much? And I think you're in a similar place as I am in terms of how we feel about Matt Rule. Obviously, you've had one-on-one time with him, and I have not, so you know him better than I do. But have you been able to kind of put your finger on what it is about him that appeals to you so much? Because as I listen to him talk, I'm starting to formulate what I think it is, but I'm curious where you're at there.
So I think it's a little bit of what I talked about yesterday in describing his personality, right? He's so, again, it's this weird balance where, I don't know if you've ever been around those people. There's kind of unassuming, and they don't really take themselves that serious, but they ooze this supreme confidence. Their ability to not take themselves so serious is birthed from the fact they're very secure in who they are. Does that make sense? So it's like he can say some things and you can not go with it, and he's gonna say, okay, hey, cool, good talk. Or it's like, he'll be talking to players, and a couple conversations I can remember in particular during fall camp. He's like, listen, why would you want to argue with me? Like, why would you be mad at me? I want the best for you. I've spent time winning at a high level. I know what it takes to get to the NFL. Well, what are we arguing about here? Right? It's just that you just don't hear the angles of discussions happen from that vantage point. Like he truly wanted to know like why you would think that this is a good idea when I'm for you. Right. And it's disarming.
Mm-hmm.
And so his strength, some of his strengths, it's not just his discernment, but some of his strengths are his ability to push away from the table. Right. It's like, because it leaves you wanting more. He can get up or he can allow you to get up and, go take some time, and it's still going to be okay. And there's just something captivating about that, at least in my opinion, because in this weird warped way, it leaves you wanting more. And I think that's ultimately when you leave conversations with him, you're like, give me a little more. How about a little more? Yeah, and he's just got it down. I just think the level of authenticity, and he's not afraid to make himself vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he'll share some things, and it's like, how'd that come? And weird, right? Who can relate? That would be a guy like me. Like you just get talking, and it's like, God, I can't even believe I just said that. I wasn't even really trying to go there. You know what I mean?
We definitely didn't have a podcast like that on this week.
Yeah, I'm still a little mad at you for that one, but we'll be all right. We'll be all right.
And heard a couple of different Jeff Sims interviews, and kind of something that popped out to me from both is just the way he talked about the offensive line and kind of the approach he's taking, and just the positive, uplifting mindset. While, hey, we're still going to correct what needs to be corrected. I'll get on you if you're not doing the right thing, but at the same time, like I'm telling you, you're the best offensive line in the league. You can do no wrong in my eyes. Just what do you make of kind of that kind of follows along with a similar theme that we've heard from Rule talking about the offensive line, and that's going to be a huge key to the way this team goes. So what do you make of kind of the way they're talking about the offensive line and how it's shaping up heading into the season?
Yeah, I know it's weird. It's like I feel like those guys have pulled a Jedi mind trick on me. It started with Coach Rule, like 3 weeks in, he's at the podium and he's like, "Yeah, I don't subscribe to this narrative that we're not going to have a good offensive line. We're going to have a good offensive line." And I'm just like, "We are?" Like,
are you sure?
well, that's kind of how I felt. He was so definitive.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, well, he hasn't been here long enough, right? But then some of his follow-ups to that was, we got to play in a way that it plays to their strengths. We have to call an offense that plays good complementary football to what they're good at. And I just was like, okay, all right. I'm thinking downhill run game. I'm thinking road graders. I'm thinking, all right, we're gonna do what these guys do well. And then I coupled that with a familiar voice in Donnie Raiola, where they will receive instruction the same way that they did the previous year. And I think there's something to be said for continuity. And then
we're just going to do what's asked.
I looked at the change in body types.
Yeah.
Right. Where, because for a couple of years, I just thought Nebraska was too big along the offensive and defensive lines compared to the rest of the Big Ten Conference. I wanted lighter, quicker, more explosive,
athletic
guys coming off the ball, and that's starting to happen too. And so many guys, it's going to be competitive, right? I mean, you got 7-8 guys for 5 spots, and I'm looking forward to just the battles. And the offensive line is probably the one position group I've thought the least about, and I have no idea why. And again, it might be a Yoda deal, It's just it could be the whole Jedi mind trick thing, where it's like I'm more worried about wide receivers. I want numbers along the D line. I'm trying to figure out of the 75 linebackers, which 4 or 5 are gonna play. Listen, they have a lot of versatility.
Yeah,
and one thing that I am confident in is he'll utilize that whole roster, right? Like he's studied it. He's asked around about how to take advantage of big numbers and good groups, and being, how can I get 10, 12 plays out of this player? How can I get 5 or 6 snaps out of this? Like he just doesn't want to wait.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get people that are driven like that, you give yourself a chance. But I think for me, I'm probably the most concerned about the wide receiver room. And then, you know, I guess I would go to D-line, but shoot, man, they arguably have one of their best coaches coaching D-line. So, you know, I feel good. Knighton is one of those guys that I have a tremendous amount of respect for because he's a great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good relationally. And I joked with Coach Rule a couple months ago. I said, man, if you guys weren't so close, Knighton might be the first guy to get an offer to leave.
Yeah.
You know, and he said he's, you know, just deadpan straight face. I'm all about elevating my guys. You know, so I'm just like, all right. And it's like, it's just, he just, everything about that program is other centered, right? Like, where am I? What am I doing? Who am I doing it for? It just, I don't know. It seems to be clicking. We'll see what happens when they break camp and, you know, they got to go play a game because, you know, Minneapolis, that's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a surly, mean-spirited bunch, right? Like that group from Minnesota that they trotted out there yesterday. Black was on the defensive. He was very aggressive. His players were firm. That was kind of a scary team to be around just because they seemed so dialed in,
mm-hmm.
right? They definitely came with a message, and that was all for us and us for none. I mean, that's basically what it was. So that opener is going to be very interesting as Nebraska finds themselves. What is it still now? Like an 8-point underdog, 7.5, 8.
Yeah, I think 7.5 last I saw. We're talking with Damon Benning, who usually hosts this fine program here in the mornings. You mentioned the wide receiver room a couple times there, and I tend to agree that that's one of the places I have the most concerns. But going back to some of the things Jeff Sims was talking about, one of the wide receivers that he called out was Xavier Betts. Yep. And hearing you talk about the wide receivers, hearing Jeff Sims talk about Xavier Betts, and then remembering a clip from Matt Rule yesterday that says it's more important who they are as people than who they are as players. Is it oversimplifying to say that's why Xavier Betts is back on the football team?
It's not. 100% has everything to do with the fact that, and I've kind of told roundabout stories of Zave for years, right? Just mm-hmm. having a good relationship with him. And I said, you know, the minute he understands that his value is in things other than, you know, run boy run or jump or
mm-hmm.
how you know, whomever can tap into that can get the full Xavier Betts. And what did he tell Jessica Cootie on yeah. Sports Nightly? He said, you know, he believes in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we think, we're like, well, duh. No. See, that relationship, when it started and they gave him his 21 hours and he came in with the family and said he wanted to come back, there were these parameters in place. And none of it had to do with athletics.
Mm-hmm.
It just was, okay, if this is your goal and this is what you want to do, then this is what we've got to do. Okay, so we're going to take some time. We're going to work backwards here a little bit. They did their homework, right? Hey, you know, come down and, you know, talk to our staff a little bit about what makes and takes, some ins and outs, the learning styles. You know, maybe you can sit down with Coach McGuire. They exhausted all options to get behind the scenes as a person. So how am I not going to gravitate towards that? You know,
yeah.
And you're seeing him flourish. See, his value, at least for him in their eyes, isn't about performance. It's not. It comes from a sincere place of love. And so when people lose the anxiety to have to perfect performance,
mm-hmm.
you get authenticity in relationships. When it's still about perfecting the performance, all sorts of other things can creep in. Am I good enough? What will they say? Is the outcome? I mean, and you don't think about any of that when you know that somebody genuinely cares about you from a place of love. And listen, he's going to try it out there in Minneapolis, and that starting lineup. And yeah, I'm not going to I've got a broadcast to do, so like that I'll cry. But believe me,
it's going to be emotional for you.
Yeah, it'd be emotional. Yeah, he's had to come so far.
And
so far.
Yeah. And I wrote about that, like after listening to that interview on Sports Nightly and reference you and kind of the things he had talked about. And when the rumors first started about him coming back, and like, I was skeptical that it was going to end up meaning anything. But every step of the way, every time you've heard the coaches, you've heard Xavier, just every time you've heard from somebody about Xavier or Xavier himself, kind of like, all right, actually this is happening. Like, he's got a chance to really make a big impact on this team because of all the things that you just said. Like, they actually, there's a real connection there. And that's what it takes to get the best out of a lot of athletes, is feeling that real connection. And that seems to be something that Rule is particularly good at. And it seems like Xavier finally found the right fit to get the most out of him as an athlete because of the off the field stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's just, I can remember a couple of times during winter conditioning where you're taking 21 hours and it gets a little hectic, and it's 5, I'm getting ready for the show, and it's like, I don't know, Coach B. I'm tired. I'm this. And I said, hey, you got to reach out. Well, can you do X, Y, and Z? And I was like, well, I can call, but I'm not doing any of that, and so, Coach Rule gets a hold of him, and he's like, hey, listen, make it here. Push through these next couple of days. We'll come out of the back end. Normally he just wouldn't have showed up, but he did. And we're on the back end of this, and it could be something special.
Damon Benning, as I mentioned, one of my favorite people in the world. Awesome stuff as always. And we'll see you here in like an hour.
Yeah, well, we'll see you guys shortly.
All righty. That's Damon Benning. This is Coffee and the Cream on Hail Varsity Radio and AM 590 in Omaha.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to Coffee and Cream here on Hail Varsity Radio, AM 590 in Omaha. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on any of your podcast platforms of choice. And, of course, you can get a hold of us at 888-638-4876 or on Twitter at RA or at Jacob Padilla _ But I haven't hosted a show with Jacob in a while, and I wanted to get in some random questions. So we're going to do a bonus six-pack today, even though it's not a normal six-pack day, because I had some random questions that I wanted our buddy Jacob here to answer. So, Shane, kick it off.
Question number 1.
Who would you be more surprised at having a big year, Xavier Betts or Thomas Fidone?
Ooh, isn't that a good one?
That's a good one.
Because you got different situations, but both guys that you're like immense talent that we probably haven't. I mean, Fidone, we haven't seen anything yet, right? Xavier Betts, we've seen little flashes, but
is it a good question just because of the way I asked it?
Yeah, without a doubt,
it was all
delivery. Yeah, man, tough one right off the bat because I think Betts would have been the answer earlier in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
But like I just said, like everything I hear makes me more and more of a believer. But Fidone, like
Sauter's all in on Fidone.
We don't know what's yet is happening with Eric Gilbert, however. Eric still haven't gotten.
Yeah, with his waiver.
Yeah. And Rule even mentioned no idea what's happening there.
I think Fidone's going to play regardless because I think they're going to run a lot of two tight end sets. It's just, is it going to be Fidone and Borkacher or is it going to be Gilbert and Fidone?
Yeah, it seems like Borkacher is going to play.
Yes,
like everything.
They're all going to play.
Yeah,
whoever's available, I think is going to play. But I think Gilbert probably jumps Borkacher in line if he gets the waiver.
Yeah. I'll go. Man, that's tough, especially knowing like Fidone's personality.
Oh yeah,
like if he can play, you feel like he's going to do some stuff up.
Yeah,
it's just. We've made it through the point where he suffered his injuries. Like he got through the spring.
Knock on wood.
So that's where I think both years that happened. So I guess I'll more surprised by big year as a prompt. Correct?
Yeah.
I'll say Betts. Just that's a tough one. I'll go. I think I'd be more surprised by Betts having a big year, barring injury situation. Like I guess, like you can't assume health for someone that's been injured twice, but you also can't assume an injury.
Yeah,
especially if he's healthy now.
Yeah. So you're saying you
if they both play,
yeah,
I think like overall, like in position relatively, I guess Fedoni would end up having the bigger year.
Okay.
So I'll take Betts as the answer. I think Betts will provide some serious highlights, though.
For sure. So I'm gonna go Fedoni. It's a total coin flip, really. That's why I came up with the question, because I kept going back and forth in my head. But I'm gonna go Fedoni because I actually think Betts is gonna have a big year. So I wouldn't be surprised.
And Damon just said, "Hey, he's going to be out there starting lineup,
right?"
For our game. I was like, "Oh, okay, wow, we're already there, right away."
I mean, he's at the worst at number 3.
Pencil him in there, but like to just come out and say it, like from Damon, like, yeah, he's starting. Like, okay,
at worst, he's the number 3.
Probably the right answer,
right? Like, because Billy Kemp, Marcus Washington. If they throw 3 wide receivers out there, Betts is the 3rd guy, right? And they'll probably have 3 wide receivers out there quite a bit. So I think Betts is going to have a big year, and so I'm going to say more surprised by Fedoni, just because we have nothing in college to base it off of yet. Obviously, the talent's there. Obviously, the disposition is there. But just haven't seen anything from him yet. So I'll go Fedoni, but there's not a wrong answer.
They both hit.
Nebraska's had a good year.
Significantly raises the explosiveness of that offense.
For sure, because those are the pass catching is the big question mark there, I think, right?
And you've got other guys that do some of the littler things, like who can stretch the field at those positions, and give you big plays. And those both seem like the best answer because, again, we have no idea what's going on with Gilbert.
Absolutely. Number 2, Shane.
Question number 2.
If you could guarantee a good season from either the O-line or the D-line, which would you choose and why?
And by good season, I mean probably not any like All-Americans, but maybe like some second-team All-Big Ten performers. You never look at them and like that's the reason they lost a game. But we're not talking about like vintage Wisconsin on the O-line or like Georgia on the D-line.
I will go offensive line for a couple reasons. One, we see Nebraska with some, I think, talent level that you're talking about on the defensive line in recent years, and it ultimately hasn't changed that much. Like the Davis twins, Stilley, like they've had some good guys.
Very solid guys,
Darian Daniel, like Damon Daniel, like they've had some guys that are, maybe not All-American, first team All-Big Ten, but guys that
like
are
second
pros.
or third day draft picks, and gonna
pros
hang on a roster.
And ultimately, it hasn't
mattered.
I think if you can guarantee an All-American level player in either group, I'd take defensive line because I think a D-line that can truly
disruptor that way,
that can totally transform the entire defense. Obviously, we've seen that with Ndamukong Suh. But if we're talking about just above average, competent, I think
probably a little better than above average is what I mean.
So I think I'd take that on the offensive line because what it could mean for all the other pieces. I think on defense, they've got enough experience in the back end that even if you're not great up front, you can maybe carve out a defense that can survive if you've got an offense that can do it at once. And that's the problem with Nebraska in recent years, even with the skilled talent they've had, is they haven't been able to dictate anything on offense because the offensive line hasn't been good enough. So if they can hold up, then suddenly I feel a lot better about Jeff Sims. Like I'm still in wait and see mode on him
100%.
Because the problem with him, he wasn't very good at Georgia Tech. And the question is, was it because him or was it because he just had no help around him?
Because he was at Georgia Tech.
And if Nebraska isn't that much better in terms of protection and weapons and all that, then how can we expect to get a dramatically different Jeff Sims? So you give him protection, you give him time to hit the guys like Kemp and Xavier Betts. You can actually have a reliable handoff running game, which we haven't seen for a while. I think that puts you in a better position. Like I said, if you change the prompt a little bit and like, all right, you can get an All-American tackle, offensive tackle, or an All-American defensive tackle. I take the All-American defensive tackle, but in terms of the full unit, and the talent level we're talking about, I'd go offensive line.
So totally viable answer. I'm going to go the other way.
There we go. Perfect.
I'm going to go defensive line. And for this reason, it's because I think the rest of the defense is in good shape. So if you've got a good defensive line unit as well, I like the talent there, but there's a lot of question marks. They're young guys or transfers. You don't have a lot of for sure knowns on the defensive line. If you can give me that on the defensive line, I know I've got one side of the ball that's pretty much good to go, right? Because I trust the secondary. I like the options at linebacker. If you can tell me the defensive line is going to be good, then I can count on my defensive unit. Because there are so many questions on offense, even if I get good offensive line play, I don't know if the receivers are good enough. I don't know if Jeff Sims is good enough. I don't know what the running game looks like. If I've got a good offensive line, I can probably assume an okay running game, but I still don't know about Jeff Sims. I still don't know about the pass catchers. So I don't know that a good offensive line guarantees me a good unit in terms of the offensive unit, right? So that's why I went defense, but everything you said makes sense too. That's why I came up with the question. That's why Shane came up with the question.
There you go.
All right, number 3.
Question number 3.
If Jeff Sims is the 4th best quarterback in the Big Ten, how many wins does Nebraska have?
So I'm assuming J.J. McCarthy, Tagovailoa, and then pick one out of Cade McNamara, McCord, or Aller, basically. And then Jeff Sims, so he's in the top third of the league in quarterback play. What does that translate to for wins for Nebraska?
It's a good question. I think that leads into that probably means the offensive line
Probably
comes out on the positive end because of the things I said in the previous.
Because if the offensive line's terrible, he's not going to look like the 4th best QB in the league. That also means he's probably found some receivers.
Yeah.
Probably means the running game's been good enough.
Numbers. Yeah. So 8 wins?
I was going to say at least 7.
Yeah. That's
like if he's the 4th best quarterback in the league, something would have had to go disastrously wrong on defense, which I don't think is going to happen for them to win less than 7 games.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, outside of the top 2 guys in the league, like talent-wise,
it's not as strong as it has been.
It's not a super strong group, and I also think for his talent level, it's not more insane to say he's going to be the 4th best guy in the group versus like Tanner Mordecai to be the 4th best.
Or Hudson Card.
Or Mordecai might be a bad example because he's got a lot of stats on his track record, but like Hudson Card or Luke Altmaier or even McCord or Aller, because we just haven't seen him, right? Like at least we know that he's played high-level college football before. That is the first half of the 6-pack. We will get to the second half because Shane's still thirsty coming up after this.
So I have to nurse my beer?
Yeah, you got to nurse it during the break, but we've got more Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio at AM 590 in Omaha coming up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to Coffee and Cream here on Hail Varsity Radio, live from the H&H Chevrolet studios. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm Ravi, Lulla, and Shane Schillerberg taking care of us as always, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to. We're brought to you today by
come on, Shane.
by the Omaha Storm Chasers.
Why the f*** is Shane walking in there?
Yeah, Shane, what are you walking in there? Well, I'm trying to do a read.
I don't know.
We're brought to you by the Omaha Storm Chasers. They are currently on a little road trip. They're going to be in Louisville starting on Tuesday, but on August 8th, they are back in town and they're playing. I don't know if it's a rival in minor league baseball, but it's a state rival in the Iowa Cubs. They'll be there for 6 games between August 8th and August 13th. A ton of great promotions. Maybe my favorite one on the 9th, Bark in the Park. You know how I love a good dog. Obviously, on Thursday the 10th, you got your $2 deal days. And then on August 12th, you've got Faith and Family Night as well. So make sure you get over to Werner Park and get some tickets for that 6-game homestand against the Iowa Cubs, August 8th through the 13th for your Omaha Storm Chasers. All right, Shane, it's time for the second half of that 6-pack. I know you're thirsty. Let's hit it.
Question number 4.
If you could make one realistic roster move for your Phoenix Suns, what would it be?
Oh, jeez.
This is more specific for you, Jacob, obviously.
Yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah, Shane, famous Phoenix Suns fan. So you've got the core of Booker, Durant, and Beal. You have lost some of the peripheral pieces this season. When you look at that roster, who are you like, okay, we need this type of guy at least to help fill things out?
So the kind of popular one that a lot of like fans, and there's some rumors linking them, is TJ McConnell. Suns acquiring him, which it doesn't seem like the pieces there to make it work, and interest on Indiana side or whatever. But that's kind of, I think, just some insurance in the ball hand after cutting campaign loose, making that move.
Like a third.
Yeah, I feel good about, like I don't have any worries about a Beal Booker backcourt in terms of like how that's going to work offensively and all that. But it would be nice to have another option that's not Jordan Goodwin or Saban Lee as your backup point guards.
Yeah,
that
would be nice.
Those are their options right now. And Eric Gordon, at this point in his career, you don't want to put too much of a creation burden on him. So maybe not exactly TJ McConnell, but if you could add someone like that caliber, just someone, a backup point guard that can defend and can create a little bit, like that's kind of the piece that I think would help push this team forward the most, because I feel pretty good. I like a lot of the kind of additions they made on the margins, like Keita Bates-Diop and guys like that, the kind of the gambles, or I guess the lottery tickets they're taking with some of those minimum guys.
The Flyers on.
I think they had a really good offseason overall. Yeah, it's just that's kind of the ball handling, especially it's a long 82-game season. Like Beal, Booker, they're going to miss a couple games here and there. You need to be able to get through those regular season games later in the season and all that. So I don't love their ball handling and creation and on ball defense.
Yeah,
like the combination of all that beyond the starters there. So TJ McConnell level player is probably the best addition they can make at this point.
Okay, I like it.
There we go. There's our NBA talk.
There we go. Shane, what's next?
Yeah, it's fun to drink too.
Question number 5.
Who is the NBA player who is likely a bust that you can't give up on?
So I've got these like NBA players in my life, not really in my life, but in my fandom, that I just look at them and I'm like, no, I still believe you're good, even though nothing in their NBA career or very little in their NBA career has led me to continue to believe that. I just can't quit on them. So one of them for me, and this guy has obviously shown, but he's got other issues, is like I still want the Warriors to acquire Ben Simmons somehow and just see if they can fix him. It's like, hey, they fixed Andrew Wiggins. Maybe they can fix Ben Simmons. Because obviously the talent's there, right? Yeah. And he actually showed it at an NBA level. I think he was third team All-NBA at one point a couple years ago. But I just have no idea if he actually likes basketball or not. So that's a pretty big problem.
That's the problem, yes.
A lesser one for me is I just love Matisse Thybulle. I love him. And I don't know why. I think it's because I wanted the Warriors to draft him a few years ago.
I don't think you can call him a bust, though.
Not a bust.
He is he's
what he should have been.
Yeah. I think he is what he. But I think about enough
him,
to keep him.
I think about him a disproportionate amount to his place in the NBA.
I don't have a good answer for this because a lot of the guys that a lot of fans like a guy like Cam Reddish, that people are still holding on to. I was never in on that. Fair. Like I'm not in on guys that like, oh, they're supposed to have great talent, but they haven't shown themselves to be good. Yeah. So like fair. I tend to be a little bit more negative on that than
who's one for me? Malik Monk.
Well, he's turned himself into a good player now too.
I thought he was going to be better sooner. Yeah. He struggled in Charlotte, which is a common thread with people who end up in Charlotte
quite a bit.
But he's kind of found a nice place in Sacramento. But I was always a big Malik Monk guy, so I feel a little vindicated that it's come along a little bit. But that's a guy where I was like, he's got really high level athleticism. He's a really high level shooter. Like that guy's got to work in the league, right?
I'll just go homer pick here and say, and it doesn't like bust like first round pick or
bust
anything.
is aggressive.
Isaiah Roby has a place in the NBA.
Sure,
and like there's still talent there. There's still physical tools there.
Absolutely.
And full disclosure, obviously, I know Isaiah, and I really good dude. And Knicks, it seems like they're going to carry him into the season. So happy to see that.
Good.
He's got a great spot, a great chance to earn a roster spot there. But like he's a guy that has shown he's good enough to stick in the league, but teams are like always kind of looking for the next piece, and he's kind of been the guy that's
on the chopping block.
Because of that. So hopefully he can carve out a place. Like we've seen some other guys that I think like a guy like Kyrie Thomas felt like maybe he could have.
That's one for me. Is I really felt like Kyrie Thomas had a place in the league with his defense, the fact that he was able to make himself into a good 3-point shooter. I'll always believe in the right situation. Kyrie Thomas could have stuck in the league. So no one can convince me otherwise.
And so I'm hoping that Isaiah gets the opportunity that Kyrie did to stick somewhere and to carve, and like not even maybe an Anthony Tolliver-esque career, because he like turned into a
12-year NBA player. Like he can stick around forever.
And he had a couple stretches there where he's a significant rotation player for some solid teams, but. I think
even the guy that just sticks around for 5, 6, 7 years,
he's definitely good enough to play in the league, I think. So
absolutely,
I'll go with that as my answer.
Works for me.
More.
You know what? One thing I can never give up on:
drinking.
There. We'll finish this thing off.
Question number 6.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh no.
I'm curious.
We don't have enough time to get to go through this.
Is it not drinking?
Well, no, I don't drink myself. So there are a lot of little things that bother me in the world.
Let's start hearing them.
Well, it's just like so many things driving. Like
oh, sure, yeah.
What's the point of getting into a turning lane and then turning your turn signal on, but not using it to change
signal
lanes.
that you're getting into the next lane. That's a good point.
Once you're in the turning lane, like
we know
what else are you doing? the turning signal is to let the people know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or people that don't turn it on, like they're coming up and there's like you have time to turn, but if they're going straight, you don't want to, and then they get there and then they don't turn it on, and it's like, well, I could have gone if you had told me that you were turning there.
Yes.
So those are
a big one with turn lanes for me is people that basically come to a stop before they get into, especially a long turn lane. It's like, you have a turn lane so you can slow down. Do not slow down in the main lane.
Or take the entire way, like you're driving basically in 2 lanes up until you get to the very end of it, and you're going slow.
Get over. Just get over.
So a lot of driving.
A lot of driving ones.
A lot of grammar ones.
Okay. I think I drive you crazy with some of the grammar ones.
So, and there's also like the defending champion, like in sports, is like the most common one. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me because of something like I had a professor point this out while I was in school. You're not defending anything. That title is yours.
Yeah, you're
nothing you do unless you're a boxer or something like that, where there's a belt that transitions from winner to winner. You have to win to keep it. No, it's a new year. You're not defending that title. That's yours. You're trying to earn another one.
Yeah.
So I always go with reigning champion.
Sure.
Or
because you're currently the last person on the crown. You're the reigning.
You're not defending. You're trying to earn another one.
So you're the earning champion.
No shame.
No shame.
Not that.
And also like using apostrophe S to make something plural. That's the other big one that drives me nuts.
That's a bad one.
That doesn't make any sense, and 90% of the population does it. I don't like. Do you guys not take English class?
So I don't notice them as much.
I notice every single one.
But you also are a professional writer, and I am not, so it probably sticks in your. And
So
you went to school for it too.
Well, and to
Maybe
tell
that's
you,
your hobby.
Yeah. To tell you, no.
These are your hobby.
To tell you something about me. So I lived next door to our grade school secretary.
Mm-hmm.
I would point out typos in her memos to her. And this was
Isn't
me.
that how you get F's?
This is me in middle school. She was the
She's secretary. She ain't great anything.
She's not great at anything, but so that was middle school me. So that tells you a lot about who I am. And
just remember that Jacob always means well.
Yes.
He never does anything maliciously. It might seem like, man, why are you coming at me like that? No, he means well. He's trying to help. He's trying to help your grammar. Coming up next, I don't know if Mike Sautter means well, but he is going to be joining us next here on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Mike Sautter.
I would agree, Damon.
Mike Sautter.
Yeah.
Mike Sautter.
Oh, man, you're going to put me on the spot.
Mike Sautter.
Welcome back to Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio, AM 590 in Omaha, live from the H&H Chevrolet studio. Ravi, Lulla here with you, Jacob Padilla with me as well, and we're joined now by our mutual friend, Mike Sautter. Mike, how are you feeling today? Because last night you were struggling.
I'm sweating right now.
This man calls me at about 10:30 last night, and I'm going to be honest, you sounded defeated.
Yeah, it was at that moment. I was definitely defeated.
I almost sent like a wellness check on you. I was like, is this man okay?
Yeah. Was to bed about 1 in the morning, and then woke up. What time did I wake up? I don't know. Like when 6:30, 7, something like that, and started unloading and moving boxes and
So how
emptying cars out and all that stuff.
So
I'm sweating already today.
I would say I'm not gonna lie to you just because we're friends. You don't sound significantly better this morning than you did last night.
I'm a little. It's been a lot. When you can't control the weather, but it's moving on the 2 hottest days of the year is not great.
You probably should have planned better there.
Okay, because I can tell whoever makes the weather, God or whoever, whatever you want to believe, is hey, I got to move these 2 days. Could you please not make it the hottest, most humid days of the universe?
Thank you, dear baby Jesus.
Yeah, dear baby Jesus. Yeah. I'm also, if you know me, like I'm a little tight, right? When it comes to I'm a little anal about certain things.
Oh, you don't say.
And the fact that my house just has crap in it, the new one right now, and my garage has just stuff. Like I was just putting stuff. This is going to be a very long weekend right now. Like not looking forward to it. Still got to go back to my neighbors because last night we were like, hey, can we just throw this stuff in your garage? Like we have the little, odds and ends at the end because you had to get out of the house. And like, so I got to go back to my old neighbors and move that stuff. So.
Did you just leave stuff at my brother's house? Is that what I just learned?
Wide open.
With our.
No, it was, I don't know what just happened.
All right. Well, Sautter,
Guys, it is hot, and I am like, I didn't shower, right? I haven't showered yet, because I'm like, why would I shower?
Yeah, you're just going to need another one.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm not going to be around people enough in public, whatever. So I'm just going to go a whole nother day. I'll shower at some point today, but I mean, I was sweating. I'm sweating right now.
Look at it this way. You get through this, you probably won't have to move for a while. So just got to get through this weekend.
Yeah, I don't want to move ever again. If I can help it, this is the forever home. Isn't there a TV show about forever home?
I don't watch HGTV, so I have no idea.
I'm sure there is. Wow. I told my wife, because she kind of enjoys moving because she grew up with a military parent, so she's kind of gotten used to it. I was like, listen, we're not moving unless we hire movers. I'm not doing any of this. This is not happening. So
Ravi, we hired movers. We had 4 dudes and 2 trucks, and it's still I was gonna cuss. So right now. So, yeah.
we get the implications. Speaking of moving,
go ahead.
Yeah, as we transition into sports here, seems like the recruiting calendar is going to be moving around next year. Read a story on CBS Sports about kind of some of the changes coming, and a lot of it doesn't really apply to just fans and athletes and all that. It's more coach specific, but the actual live evaluation calendar seems to be changing dramatically. With shifting the live recruiting periods where Division I coaches are able to go out on the road and actually watch kids play at these tournaments, seems to be shifting from April, which has been forever, over to May. What are your thoughts on kind of the proposed changes that they were talked about in that article as far as coaches being on the road and seeing kids play in person?
I kind of frankly, I read that article. I kind of love it. I like the shift from April to May because the Final Four is the first weekend in April or whatnot, right?
Yep.
So then then it's transfer portal. Being out in April and in an Adidas run event, there were coaches, but it wasn't like it's been in the past where it's been whatever. And then even the coaches that you talk to, it's our head coach had to stay back or head coaches only came there on maybe a Sunday or something because they had transfer portal recruit visits. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think because transfer portal is probably not, it's going to change, but probably not that much.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. I don't mind the change to May. And then the two weekends in July and they're not 7 days long or whatever it was. That just felt like a long time. It's too much, right? So I think you just trim it down. Can it just be rather than playing Wednesday through Sunday, just play Thursday through Sunday. Give kids 2 games a day max, and that's it. Rather than 1 game a day. When I say game, this is for people who don't watch it. You're right. A game is an hour.
Yeah.
It's not a high school game. It's not it's not a full, it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 games in a day, I think is very doable. I think it's not super taxing on the body. The women's calendar has been pretty good. They should just probably follow that path. Minus the fact that their live periods are on a Tuesday through Friday or whatever. You know, why is it in the middle of the week? So that doesn't make sense. But I kind of like the fact that it would kick from April to May. Now, multi-sport kids,
you're
going to run into a problem. because you'll have state district track meets or baseball or whatever, but kind of just I'm pretty sure the NCAA doesn't care about your state
track
association track meet. So, yeah.
Mike, moving on to some specific guys. Yesterday, Chase Lofton tweeted out some photos of him down at Oklahoma. Obviously, a big in-state prospect in the 2025 class. What do you know about kind of where he stands? Obviously has some Power 5 offers already. Where's Nebraska at in this equation, and what do you know about that?
I haven't talked to him, but I do know his brother is at K-State, and Braden. If you remember, Braden was at Burke, and then he had to go to Lewis Central in that COVID year stuff, when OPS canceled. Yeah, when OPS did the thing that set them back more than a decade in high school sports, and we're feeling that right now, right?
Very much so.
Really are. So that decision, wasn't the best. So as far as athletics is concerned, for health, safety, all that other stuff, sure. But for athletics, it crushed OPS. It really did. So anyway, Boomer, by the way, Sooner. I should not keep that as a drop. Shane, don't do that. No, I know he's been to Oklahoma. This is like the third time I think he's been down there. So, Nebraska offered all that. I think Nebraska probably should feel decent about it. There's so much time for that. It's not happening, anytime soon.
Yeah.
There's so much time. 25 shaping up to be pretty good, I think. Football recruiting.
Kind of what I was wondering. Obviously, the 24 class is loaded, right?
24 is stupid. Yeah,
I mean, probably
24 might be the best we've ever had.
That's what I was just going to ask. I mean, it's got to be up there. I mean, it can't be much lower than 1 or 2, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it though, from a depth perspective, it is for sure.
Yeah. In terms of depth of Power 5 guys.
Yeah, but from a high-end nationally ranked perspective, it's not, because 1 year we had the number 2 player in the country, Baker Steinkuhler. So that's probably never going to happen again. But it's a depth standpoint. There's 12 Power Conference guys in 2024 class.
Jeez.
And then if you go group of 5, you have guys like Harry Caskey. There's a ton. And then if you go FCS, I mean, 6-man dude just got an offer from South Dakota the other day. So that's big, right? I think 24 is pretty good. 25 is going to be all right though. I think it's trending in the right direction. And 25 obviously in basketball is pretty high level right now, which is pretty awesome to see because kind of isn't it weird? Like when 24 was growing up, it's like, oh, just wait for this 24 class. Well, yeah, no one grew.
It turned out they all played football.
Yeah.
And they're playing football. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is a problem. A lot of those guys were really good youth players that just didn't quite grow and reach the physical thresholds to attract a lot of D1 interest. But mentioned the 25 class, and obviously guys like Braden Frager and Amari Bynum have racked up high major offers after breakout summers. But who are some others, 2024, 2025, whoever, that impressed you, that really made a great impression on coaches, that really helped themselves this spring and summer with what they did on the court?
So I can only go by what I saw, right? So I'm not going to make summer MVP stuff that I've seen on Twitter. That
Sautter, make sweeping declarations now.
Yeah, you didn't even see these people play, so how do you know they were the MVPs, right? That's just wild to me. You maybe saw them play 3 games.
Yep.
Well, it's hard.
I saw their highlights on Twitter though. I'm naming them MVP.
Yeah, sure. I think that's just absurd, right? That is such a money grab, an attention-seeking thing. It is unreal, and one day parents will figure it out, or maybe not. So
maybe not. Probably not.
I don't know.
I wouldn't bet on it.
So back to the original question. So Amari Bynum was fantastic. But for me, Bryson Ball, I think is very much so trending in the right direction. Had a coach I talked to, not yesterday, 2 days ago. What was that? Wednesday? Yeah. And said, hey, how do we get Bryson Ball? We just want to get him. And I'm like, well, you got to offer him first.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah, I know, but but what's it going to take to just get him to say yes? And I'm like, oh, I'm not his parents. So, but that's the guy. Yeah. Like Bryson Ball's the guy. Chuck Love going to LaLu prep school from Lincoln Northeast. Yes. Hey, guess what? He transferred to Lincoln Northeast. I know it's kind of confusing for some people out there, but the plan was for him to transfer to Lincoln Northeast, and then now he's going to LaLu. So he comes out of the class, but the class is still pretty good. I think you got to start with his ability to do kind of everything is great. His upside is higher than everyone else's upside. Braden Freger, though, is obviously pretty good. He's straight left hand, downhill driver, all those things. There were some things that you saw there that towards the end, it's like, okay, like, is he tired or is it like start to pick it apart a little bit? But his athleticism is amazing, right? He's super explosive and has the ability to hit the three and do things that obviously people like. But Bryson Ball is that guy, the next guy. I really do think in that class he's the next guy. 25, I would say, or 2024. Go back up to the senior class. I mean, obviously Jaden Jackson. For me, he's been the best player in the class for a long time. But I think Neil Mosser played extremely well down the stretch, especially in July. He is a great passer. Yeah. Like, people don't know that. People think he just kind of is a corner three guy, but no, he can facilitate. He can play a little point guard. You'll see that for Millard North, I think, this year. Yeah.
I watched either in person or on video 25 of ETG Midwest of their games this year. Mosser in those 25 games shot almost 44% from three on 160 attempts. That dude can shoot.
Pretty good. That's pretty hard to do.
Like 8 attempts a game?
Not quite that much, but yeah, he high volume, and they're not easy. It's not like he's getting catch and shoot wide open. Like, that dude can really shoot. And like, he's 2.5 assists to 1 turnover a game, basically. Really crafty passer on top. That's the thing. Like, Neil, starting to show a little bit more of the off the dribble. Like you mentioned, kind of playing some point guard in June for Millard North, making the most of that opportunity, especially when Elijah Gaith was sitting out recovering from toe injury. You'd see him step up a little bit there. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Jaden Jackson was awesome as well. So those are definitely two of the guys from that 2024 class that I think, and you started to see Jaden pick up Sanford recently, and I know they're really excited about him. South Dakota State has been on him for a long time now. Handful of other offers.
2 years.
Yeah, I think if he was 3 inches taller, like, we might be talking about a high major player right here, just based on what he showed.
No, there's no mic.
Yeah.
If he was 3 inches taller, he would be. Yeah, he's just 5'11", right? If he was 6'2", it would be over. Like, everybody would be on him because he's got a 6'7" wingspan at 5'11".
He's a little taller than that. Like, he's about my height. You don't have to give him 5'11".
I said 5'11". He's 5'11".
Jacob's a solid 6-footer.
He's not over 6 foot, man. Come on, no way.
But yeah, if he was 6'4", like, there's no doubt. Like, it's just, again, that's the problem with the class as a whole is, like, maybe they don't. They're just not big. Either not big enough or not athletic enough for those that do have more of the positional size. You're just a little short on kind of that meshing point that you need to. But there's a lot of good basketball players in those class. I think you got some really good D2 NAI level.
McCafferty from Concordia is starting to get a little buzz.
Yeah,
like I've I mean, I know I've taken a couple phone calls and texts about him. So
he played well that last live period in front of coaches on that Saturday.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like I've had, some like mid-major stuff, right? Low mid-major stuff is starting to get. He's just so big and can shoot the three and step out and kind of a stretch 5-man, right? Yep. So a little undersized, stretchy 5-man, I guess.
Mike, we're talking with Mike Sautter of Hurrdat Sports, NEB Preps. Is there, I love my small school guys. Is there somebody in we'll stay with 2024 because it's probably too early on 2025, kind of the way the smaller school recruiting cycle goes. But is there a guy that you look at and say, okay, that guy's going to be an awesome like D2 or NAIA player?
I think that's Aiden Zeekman's going to really help somebody. Like from Central City. Is that kind of small? Like C1.
Yeah.
I mean small school, like a small college. Like they're going to go to a small.
In college right now?
No. A guy that's currently in like the 2024
not a D1
class
guy, but is going to have a great
will have
career.
A really good like NAI or D2 career, because those are the guys that we just don't talk about very much.
Oh, okay. So depending on what he does, I get what you're saying. I thought you meant like a small high school.
No.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. Depending on what happens, I think Lena Pekorski, if he ends up at that level, which I feels like he's like that D2 NAI tweener guy right now. I think if he ends up at that level, I think he could have an impact and be pretty good. I comp him to a not as vertical of an athlete, Connor Milliken.
Okay.
And that's just and doesn't score it, as efficient as not efficient
prolifically. Yeah.
Prolifically, yes, as Connor. But he does a lot of other things pretty well. Frankly, I think the 2024 basketball class is loaded with like
D2 NAIA.
Yeah. Like this is a great year to be D2 NAI guy. Dylan Clausen's another one.
Yep.
Cade Cook is another one that'd be, I think he's squarely D2 right now, right?
Marcus Glock.
Marcus Glock is squarely probably D2 right now. See what happens with that. And here's the deal: like some of these dudes, if Nebraska was located, I don't know, let's just say Delaware or Virginia or something. A lot of these dudes would be Division I guys, just because
going to Longwood.
Yeah, or whatever, right? Like American.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
some of those small
American.
like NEAC schools or whatever.
Yeah, MEAC and all that stuff. Be like the D2s. I'm not sure people understand the D2s around here, like in the area, the NSIC, MIAA, are significantly better than most of those schools.
And some of the GPAC teams are too, honestly.
Yeah, at basketball.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Not just, and their facilities are better, and all that stuff is better. Everything's better. So, like a guy like a Marcus Glock, if he didn't live in Nebraska, he would definitely be a Division I guy. And the old saying is, though, if you can play, they'll find you. Well, yeah,
they don't always.
Not all the time.
But and then even then, like you're talking though, like the D2 schools in this area, and even Northwest Missouri State has had a steady stream of Nebraska kids kind of go through there and make an impact down there. And like there are a lot of D2s that kids go to D2 level and have a better career than trying to latch on to a low major. And we've seen that with some recent kids that have tried the low major route that bounce back. And like, so there's nothing wrong with like being a Division II player at a really good program, just go and have a great career. And that's the thing, like we've talked about this before, but Connor Milliken, like the way that his recruitment went and how he could have kind of strung it out, played it out longer, tried to hold on for a low major or a D2, but instead, you know what? These are the three NAI schools that have shown me the most love. I can see myself going there to all three of them. So I'm going to lock in on these ones and make a decision and just go score 2,000 points in college like I did in high school.
He should be the poster child for a lot of people and a lot of parents and whatever's recruitment. He really should. Like going forward, like he could have held out for Division I, and you know, like, oh, I'm gonna wait till the end of my high school season, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? His recruitment would not have changed one bit.
Yeah.
And it would have put undue pressure on him to like perform at a higher level and all that stuff his senior year of high school. So that doesn't always work, right? He should definitely be the poster child for what it is to kind of know your level and be there.
Preaching to the choir here with that one. Mike Sautter, Hurrdat Sports, NEB Preps. Sautter, thank you for filling in with me this week, and I hope that at some point you get to shower today.
Yeah, I do. This was a little break. I was not breathing heavier. Just kind of walked around stuff in the garage talking to you guys, so I needed that a little bit.
All right, man.
I better get going now.
Get back to work.
My wife is yelling at me right now.
Yeah. So. Bye, Sautter.
Right, bye.
Mike Sautter. More coffee and cream coming up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio, AM 590 here in Omaha. I'm Ravi Lulla, Jacob Padilla here with me as well. Shane Schillerberg taking care of us and producing. All right, so I'm going to give you the phone number, 888-638-4876, because we still have 3 general admission tickets to give away for Omaha Whiskey Fest. We talked to Phil and Rachel yesterday about the Omaha Whiskey Fest coming up on October 7th in the Hilton Omaha, downtown Omaha. You can go to omahawhiskeyfest.com if you would like to purchase these tickets, but we're about to give 3 pairs away. Not just 3 tickets, 3 pairs of tickets away. We gave the VIP ones away yesterday. They're sold out of the VIP ones. The only way you can get the VIP experience now is to book a stay at Hilton Omaha, and you will get your VIP experience with the booked room. So that's omahawhiskeyfest.com. In order to give away these tickets, we're going to play a little NBA trivia. Here's the nice thing about it, though. Jacob has to answer the questions. You do not in order to win the tickets. You just have to tell me how many questions Jacob gets right. So I've got 5 questions. So you call in to Shane, 888-638-4876, and tell Shane how many questions that Jacob gets right, and you will win a pair of tickets to Omaha Whiskey Fest. Are you ready?
No.
Okay.
Let's go anyway.
Terrific.
I feel like I know NBA, but I'm also not very good at being put on the spot. So
I know, and I've been terrible at that with you today. But I think these are reasonably easy. But we'll see here, okay? And if you don't get them right, it's okay. We still know you know more about basketball than all of us. So Michael Jordan wore 3 different numbers during his NBA career. What were they?
23, 45, and I don't remember the third.
12.
When was 12?
So it was, I believe, on Valentine's Day in like 1989. Somebody stole his jersey.
Okay.
And he wore the replacement jersey number 12 for 1 game.
Okay, so that is a cruel trick question. I was born in 1992.
Yeah.
I grew up in a Michael Jordan super fan household. Like I had Jordan stuff everywhere. Never saw a picture with 12 in there.
So here it is. It was on.
That was like the
original. It was in 1990. There's Michael Jordan wearing number 12.
That was like the original gate. It was like Jersey Gate.
It didn't even have his name on the back of it because it was the replace. I think it was like the blood jersey. Like the jersey you had to.
Do you really need one for if you're a red jersey? Like, will the refs notice?
I don't know if they notice, but if they do, you have to replace it. So it was in 1990 because his jersey was stolen. So that was. Question number 1. I think that was the hardest question.
Yeah, I was trying to think, like, is there a USA number? Is there, like, what did he wear? Washington?
Well, he wore 9 in Team USA, but I said NBA.
Okay, that's
so,
right.
That's the toughest one. So here we go.
You got partial credit.
Yeah, I think so. We'll get you. Yeah, we'll give you partial credit. We'll call that a win. Number 2. Who was the first player in NBA history to make 300 three-pointers in a season?
Oh, jeez.
Think about who's asking the question here.
300. Steph Curry?
It is Steph Curry. No one had broken 300 until he made 400.
I was trying to remember what the threshold was that he broke.
He broke 300 and 400 in the same season.
Yeah,
no one had. Now, a couple guys, himself again, Harden, and then this last year, Clay breached 300 as well. But until he hit 402 in his unanimous MVP season, no one had made 300 in a season.
Probably would have got there, but I was trying to. I knew he shattered whatever the previous threshold was. I was just trying to remember what that threshold was.
So I think the previous record was 269 by Ray Allen.
Yep.
But yeah, he demolished it. All right. So number 3. Steve Kerr holds the record for highest three-point percentage of all time for a career. To the closest whole number, what was that percentage?
For a whole career, and you got
low volume guy.
Yeah, but you got long enough career to qualify.
Yep.
44%.
Ooh, so close. 45.
Dang it!
45.4 to be exact. Steve Kerr's career 3-point percentage. Steph is at 43% for his career, and he's shot like a million times more than Steve Kerr. So it's a little. It's actually the list is actually really funny because some of the low volume names on there are absurd. They're totally bonkers. So I would encourage, if you're an NBA nerd, to do that at some point. Very, very close though. All right, here we go. Who has a higher 3-point field goal percentage for their career? Steph Curry or Klay Thompson?
Ooh.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, I'll go Klay. Ooh. Dang it. I thought it was a trick question. I tripped myself up.
You did. You outthought yourself. So Klay is at like 41.6. Steph is at 42.8.
Yeah.
So very close, though. All right, last one here. Of the 3 Currys, you can tell who wrote these questions. They're very in my wheelhouse in terms of the players.
Should have factored in the injuries to Klay and
Well, that's career percentage though. It wouldn't affect them.
Well, dragging it down a little bit.
Of the 3 Currys who have played in the NBA, Dell, Steph, and Seth, who has the best career 3-point percentage?
I have never ever looked up Del Curry numbers before.
They're all in the top like 15. Like they're all very high.
Yeah. See, now because you have given me 2 answers with Steph as the answer,
you're trying out.
I'm thinking myself again. Like, does it have to be Steph? Because like that's the theme of your questions. But that would be the obvious answer again, and here I am outthinking myself. Guessing, obviously, Steph's volume is so much higher than anybody else's, so it would be easier for the others to.
True. That's a good train of thought.
Let's go with the little brother. Let's go, Seth.
It is Seth.
Hey, I got one.
It is Seth. He is at 43 and change. He's like a half a point ahead of Steph. Also, doesn't get the defensive attention that Steph gets either.
No.
But it's kind of ridiculous. The list is they're all in the top like 15. I think they're all above 41%. It's kind of bonkers. Like it's very strange. But that is our NBA trivia. You can call in at 888. We haven't given them all away yet, have we, Shane?
Can we do a bonus question? I get a bonus question.
You got one?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. Who is your favorite all-time Nebraska Preps producer for the podcast?
Okay, I'm trying to think. Who are some of the fill-ins we've had? Just it's got to be Shane. There's no other answer.
Oh, it's got to be Cam.
Well, so I put Severe on the spot yesterday. I go, who's your favorite co-host of all time? And I thought he was going to say Damon just because it's Damon Joey's. No, he went Kugler.
Thought it was going to be me. I co-hosted the Bottom Line sometimes.
Yeah, back in the olden days. Man,
I got to be top 10 at least.
I think so. Yeah, he's had a ton of co-hosts though. He really has. I don't know if he's had as many as Happer, but that dude went through co-hosts at the ticket like it was. It was crazy, including yours truly here.
So I got 2 and 2/3.
We'll call correct? It 3. We'll call 3 correct. Call 888-638-4876 and say the number 3, and you will win tickets to Omaha Whiskey Fest. Call Shane now, 888-638-4876. Coming up next, we're going to talk to our friend Matt Vrzal, former Husker, owner of Paisans Pizzeria, also hosts Husker Hangover as well. We will talk to Matt Vrzal to wrap up the show and to wrap up the week. Don't forget also tomorrow night, we didn't talk about it a lot today, but we did yesterday with Michael Severe, Bud Crawford and Errol Spence tomorrow night. It is pay-per-view. So either make sure you get I would try and buy it tonight so you get everything technical figured out if you're going to buy the fight yourself, or figure out your watch party or however you're going to watch it. But coming up next, we're talking to our friend Matt Vrzal, former Husker, owner of Paisans Pizzeria, right here on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning. Now let's find out what Matt Vrzal is better at, telling stories or making pizza.
Matt.
Matt's an exceptional young man.
Matt Vrzal.
Happy birthday, Matt.
You know, Matt, he's a tremendous athlete.
Matt Vrzal.
Come on, Matt, I'm with you.
You know, like Matt Vrzal, you're one of the sexiest people in the world, but you're not one of the most beautiful. How does that happen?
Here is Matt Vrzal.
All right, Matt, thank you very much.
Welcome back to Coffee and Cream as we wrap up the show here on our Friday with our friend Matt Vrzal, former Husker and owner of Paisan's Pizzeria. Verz, how you doing today?
We are above the dirt.
That's all you can ask for, right?
Some days, but we are where we are.
Verz, wanted to start off. Your Chicago Cubs are on a little bit of a heater. Have you started getting your antennas poked up a little bit, or how many more they need to win before you start really locking in?
No, nope. They're just nearing the over number for the season, so that's all. I don't.
What is that number?
They're just not in a spot where, like, thankfully they're in the Central.
Yeah.
And the Central is not exactly like a world beater, but it's good to see. For the longest time, like, their identity is a big thing. Like in sports, like, what's your identity? What's your bread and butter?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of now are getting to that point where you can see, okay, this is a baseball team that can do these things, right?
Yeah.
The pitching isn't going to be dominant, but it's going to be adequate. So now if you can manufacture some runs and you're not relying on home runs all the time, you'll be fine, right? You know how to manufacture a run.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one of the positive things of it for me. I like it, and, you know, it's good. And anytime you beat the Cardinals, it's always great. So Jurgens can suck it because the Cardinals suck. The last place, St. Louis Cardinals.
That's right. That's where they belong.
The last place, as they should be for eternity. This is for all the cheating they've done in the past. It's all catching up with them now.
Yeah, you got shenanigans going on yesterday, I think.
Steroids, stealing Astros players. I mean, come on.
We'll, I guess, transition to non-baseball topics here. Obviously, Big Ten Media Days just wrapped up there, Indianapolis, and we had Ethan Piper there representing the offensive line. It's kind of an interesting pick, I think, because he's a guy that hasn't been a full-time starter. He's been in and out of the lineup, but seems to have, we don't know where kind of his role is going to be on this team this year, but seems like he's really emerged into a leader for that group and kind of a spokesman for the program. Kind of what are your thoughts on Ethan Piper heading to Big Ten Media Days and kind of some of the stuff that he talked about or anything that you may have seen?
I have no clue what they said. I don't watch those things because I think they're stupid. But having Piper there, I think it's a huge honor to him. Not and everybody, and I get it. You want to highlight your players, but this is to me an acknowledgement of hard work. Okay, because nobody ever questions Ethan Piper and effort, right? They'll question, hey, technically he breaks down sometimes. He had a couple blown assignments, blah blah blah, that stuff. But to watch him go out and play, he's playing hard all the time, and I think this is an acknowledgement of that. I think that's why he's there. And then the one snippet I did see on Twitter was Rule asked if he had Donovan Rill in one hand and Matt Rule on the other hanging off the cliff, who would he let go of? And he said, and I was like, well, you just don't have any critical thinking. I was like, you tell Rule to grab onto Raiola, and then you just pull them both up. So just not a hard question, kid. But he put him on the spot, and, you know, that's what it was. But it was funny. He's a team guy. And he's a guy you want, you know, younger guys to pattern work ethic after. So I think it's a cool thing that they acknowledge that. Now, if he can call onto the field this year and he factors into it huge, then it's great. Then it's the perfect pick, which I think that's what Rule and those guys think is going to happen. But unfortunately for us, we haven't had a chance to see it a whole bunch on the field. So now maybe this year we get to see it.
Verse, one of the interesting things, and it's not really the specifics of what's said at media days, but I thought it was interesting when you listen to Jeff Sims or Ethan Piper or Luke Reimer or really anybody that we've heard from since Matt Rule's been hired, is they've started to sound a lot like their head coach. When you see that type of kind of lining up in terms of methodology and the way they talk, what does that mean to you when you see that? Does that mean anything, or is that just off-season stuff doesn't really matter?
It's in the middle of your closing statement, and then in like right smack dab in the middle of everything you said is kind of what it is. Now, when you get them to continually do it over and over again, now you know that the message that staff is sending is being heard, accepted, and executed. Okay? So you can talk. Anybody can talk. You've all had a boss. I'm sure kids in here, when I go on a rant, will just shut her down. But when they know that this is the reason why this is what it is, because in the end game, if you can do this minute skill, then when I go to refer you for a job, your boss is going to ask me, do they do these things? I can say, yeah. That's going to resonate, right? So now, if you believe in the mission that we're both on together is to get you to a different position, now we can work. And then when you start to take the next guy that you're now trained to do things and you're telling him the same lessons I told you, now that message is being executed, okay? So once you see a player start to use the verbiage of a coach, now they've really bought into what's happening, okay? They know the coach has their best interest in mind. They've processed the marching orders. They're resonating with them, and now they can also relay that message. So now you have peer-to-peer leadership that can happen, but it's the same message. There's no game of telephone where you dilute it and you put your spin on it. It's like, nope, this is what he said to do. This is how I'm relaying it. This is what we're all going to do together.
And with media days kind of in the books now, fall camp starting up next, calendar is about to turn to August, and means high school sports starting to ramp up too, high school football. How are you feeling kind of heading into this point on the calendar here and the build up with things really starting up here?
Yeah, we just wrapped up our camp. We had linemen, medicine ball, volleyball today. So shout out to Coach Saunders for letting us use her sand volleyball courts. The boys, they work hard. I mean, they did what they're supposed to do. They've got themselves in a position now to go have a good, early camp, and then start to progress and get ready to take on that first challenge. I believe we start with the 2-time defending state champs. So no better end to dump in than the deep end. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, now all the hard work and the mental drills all start.
Verse, what's your favorite part of kind of this off-season football calendar? Is it when you kind of finally get into fall camp, or like, do you like the lineman camp? Like, which part of it do you enjoy coaching the most?
I like when I don't have to coach. So, and the reason behind that is that through all of the off season, okay, that means we've gone through all of our schemes and all of our techniques. And then that way, when a defense that we may not have prepared a whole bunch on pops up in a game, they make the adjustments. They make the calls. Okay. So like a few years back in a state championship game, we're playing, and a friend of mine who is at Big Ten Media Days, he texted me at halftime, which I thought was incredibly rude. But I was at halftime, and the defensive guys were talking, and I was actually in John, so I just looked at my phone. And he said, "Are you blocking toss 3 different ways?" And I responded back, "No." And he said, "That's not true. Why would you lie to me?" And I said, "I'm not lying to you. There's one blocking scheme, but the boys have calls to make as per where the defense lines up. So it can look different to you. To us, it is all the same play." So that's when coaching is good to me. That means all of the mental has been absorbed. They don't think a whole bunch. They just let the defense line up. We have a scheme for it. They make their calls, and then we just run it. So that's what I like about it. That's usually everybody laughs at that one, like, because by game 4, I tell them I am of no value to you. All I can do is run you through drills now. You've seen every defense you're going to see. It's up to you to master the scheme, master the calls, and away we go.
Love it. That's Matt Vrzal. Matt, former Husker, owner of Pison's Pizzeria. Well, good luck as you get into fall camp here, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, boys. Sounds good.
That's our
Thanks,
friend
Verz.
Matt Vrzal from Pison's Pizzeria, former Husker national champion. That's actually the last answer there was really good about, because it's kind of a funny soundbite to say, like, my favorite part of coaching is when I don't have to coach anymore. And I thought that's where he was going to go, but it was a really good explanation of having them so well prepared that they kind of auto-correct.
Yeah.
That was really good there from Verz. Jacob, we're all done. We made it.
We did it.
How do you feel?
Feel pretty good. I'm about ready to do 30 more minutes of audio.
There we go. That's Jacob Padilla. I want to say thank you to Jacob, to Michael Severe, and to Mike Sautter for joining me this week. And, of course, thank you to Shane Schillerberg. This has been Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio.